A collective gasp rippled through the marble halls of the Atlanta Federal Courthouse as Maya Thompson walked toward the witness stand, her designer heels clicking against the polished floor like a metronome counting down to destiny, her elegant navy suit a stark contrast against her dark skin, while 12 pairs of eyes from the jury followed her every move. Special Agent Marcus Chen sat camouflaged among the spectators, his hand inches from the concealed weapon beneath his jacket. The morning sun streamed through the towering Victorian windows, casting long shadows across the courtroom floor like prison bars as Maya approached the witness box, her chin held high despite the weight of 3,000 days of secrets pressing down upon her shoulders. The oak-paneled walls seemed to lean inward, as if the very room itself was straining to hear what this brave woman was about to reveal, while the ancient ceiling fans spun lazily above, creating hypnotic shadows that danced across faces filled with anticipation. Judge Eleanor Martinez surveyed the scene from her elevated position, her 30 years of experience telling her that this was no ordinary testimony, her weathered hands gripping the gavel just a little tighter than usual as she observed the subtle shifts in body language among the defense attorneys, their expensive suits doing little to hide their growing discomfort, while their clients, the 7 executives of Meridian Global Banking, maintained carefully crafted masks of indifference that were beginning to show hairline cracks. The gallery was packed to capacity with journalists from every major news outlet, their fingers hovering over laptops and tablets, ready to broadcast every word to a waiting world, while sketch artists captured the historic moment with swift, sure strokes, their pencils scratching against paper providing the only sound in the otherwise silent chamber. The air itself seemed charged with electricity, as if the truth Maya carried was too powerful to be contained within the confines of human speech. Special Agent Shen shifted almost imperceptibly in his seat, his decades of training allowing him to appear completely casual, while his highly trained senses registered every minor detail from the slight tremor in the lead defendant's left hand to the way the junior defense attorney kept glancing at the emergency exit, his eyes calculating distance and escape routes that would soon prove futile. The handful of other FBI agents strategically positioned throughout the courtroom responded to Chen's subtle hand signals, tightening their invisible net around the proceedings. Maya took her final steps toward destiny, her mind racing back to that fateful night 3 years ago when she had first discovered the discrepancy in the bank's international trading accounts, a single number out of place that had led her down a rabbit hole of corruption so deep it had nearly consumed her. The faces of those who had tried to silence her flashed through her memory, the late night threats, the suspicious car following her home, the mysterious break-in that had left no traces except for her ransacked files. But none of that mattered now. The court clerk approached with measured steps, carrying the worn leather Bible that had heard countless oaths, some true, some false, but none quite like the testimony that was about to unfold. Maya could feel the weight of history pressing down upon her shoulders as she prepared to lift her right hand, knowing that her next words would set in motion a chain of events that would send shockwaves through the highest echelons of global finance and international security. Behind her, the massive wooden doors of the courtroom swung shut with a sound like destiny sealing itself as the last rays of morning sunlight caught the federal seal mounted on the wall above the judge's bench, the golden eagle seeming to fix its eternal gaze upon Maya as if giving its silent blessing to the truth she was about to unleash. Special Agent Chen made one final imperceptible gesture, and the trap 3 years in the making prepared to snap shut around some of the most powerful men in the banking world. Thunder crashed outside the towering courthouse windows as Maya placed her hand on the Bible, her Harvard ring catching the fluorescent light, while the 7 banking executives on trial whispered furiously to their $1 million defense team. Maya had spent 3 sleepless years gathering evidence of their crimes, discovering money trails that led to places so dark they haunted her dreams. The lead defendant, Richard Sterling, CEO of Meridian Global Banking, smirked at her, his steel-gray eyes holding a warning that made her pulse quicken. The leather-bound Bible felt warm beneath her palm as memories of countless nights spent in her office flooded back, the soft glow of her computer screen illuminating endless spreadsheets and transaction records that slowly revealed a pattern so disturbing she had initially refused to believe it. The rain now hammering against the courthouse windows seemed to echo the thundering of her heart during those solitary nights when she first understood the magnitude of what she had uncovered. Sterling adjusted his $10,000 suit, a habit Maya had observed during countless board meetings when he was about to destroy someone's career, but this time his practiced intimidation carried an edge of desperation that only someone who knew him as well as she did would notice. Beside him, Marcus Chen shifted slightly in his seat, his trained eyes catching the nearly imperceptible exchange of glances between Sterling and his personal security chief, James Morrison, who sat rigid in the third row, his military bearing unchanged since his mysterious departure from a classified government agency. The defense team, led by the legendary Caroline Winchester, whose services commanded four figures per hour, rustled through their papers with practiced nonchalance, but Maya could see the tension in their shoulders as they reviewed the documents she had painstakingly compiled over 3 years of careful investigation. Each page represented a piece of a puzzle that had nearly cost Maya everything: her marriage, her safety, her sanity. But sitting here now, she knew it had been worth every sacrifice. The jury seemed to lean forward as one, their attention caught by the subtle shift in energy. As Winchester rose to her feet, her reputation for destroying witness credibility preceding her like a storm cloud. Maya remembered the last time she had faced the attorney across a conference table 2 years ago, when Winchester had offered her enough money to retire comfortably in exchange for her silence. The memory of tearing that check into pieces before walking out of the room gave her strength now as she prepared to face what was coming. Behind the defense table, Julian Ross, the bank's former chief financial officer, dabbed at his forehead with a monogrammed handkerchief, his usual aristocratic composure cracking under the weight of what Maya was about to reveal. She remembered his exact expression the day she had brought her initial findings to his office, his patronizing smile as he dismissed her concerns, now replaced by barely concealed panic as he realized she had kept digging, collecting evidence, building a case that would shatter the carefully constructed facade of Meridian Global Banking. The air in the courtroom grew heavy with anticipation as Judge Martinez leaned forward, her reading glasses catching the light, while she reviewed the preliminary documents that outlined the scope of Maya's testimony. In the gallery, investigative reporters from the Washington Post and New York Times tracked every movement, their fingers hovering over keyboards ready to broadcast the first hints of a story that would soon explode across global headlines. Maya could feel the weight of their attention, but her focus remained on the evidence she had protected at all costs: encrypted drives hidden in safety deposit boxes across 3 states, paper trails protected by trusted friends in the forensic accounting community. A distant roll of thunder seemed to underscore the gravity of the moment as Maya prepared to speak the truth that had been buried beneath layers of offshore accounts, shell companies, and blood money. Her testimony would reveal how Meridian Global Banking had become the world's largest unmarked grave for dirty money, while Sterling and his conspirators had grown rich on the proceeds of human suffering. The ancient walls of justice seemed to draw closer as if lending their strength to her cause, while Special Agent Chen made a subtle gesture to his team, their positions around the courtroom forming an invisible web of protection and surveillance. The young prosecutor, Andrea Martinez, rose gracefully, her red-soled shoes and determined expression matching in intensity as she began questioning Maya. The elaborate screens around the courtroom flickered to life, displaying labyrinthine financial charts that Maya had meticulously compiled, showing billions flowing through shadow accounts like blood through veins. The jurors scribbled frantically in their notepads, while Sterling and his cohorts began to shift uneasily in their expensive Italian leather chairs. Martinez moved with the precision of a surgeon, each question carefully crafted to lay bare the skeleton of corruption Maya had unearthed within Meridian Global Banking. The first chart materialized on the screens, casting an eerie blue glow across the stunned faces of the gallery as it revealed a complex web of transactions spanning 5 continents and 23 shell companies. Maya watched as recognition dawned in the eyes of the jury, members, their pens falling still as they began to comprehend the magnitude of what they were seeing. The temperature in the courtroom seemed to drop as Maya began describing a particular series of transfers that had caught her attention in the spring of 2022, her voice steady and clear as she detailed how billions of dollars had vanished into a maze of offshore accounts only to resurface in fragments across a network of seemingly unrelated businesses. The defense team huddled closer together, their whispered conferences becoming more urgent as Maya referenced specific dates and transaction numbers that she had committed to memory during those long nights when she realized sleep would never come. Sterling maintained his facade of indifference, but Maya noticed how his manicured nails dug into the arms of his chair as she pulled up the next series of documents showing wire transfers that corresponded exactly with major international incidents that had dominated headlines over the past 5 years. Behind him in the gallery, several journalists suddenly sat straighter, their eyes widening as they began connecting the same dots that had kept Maya awake for countless nights. The story was no longer just about banking fraud, it was about something far more sinister. The screens shifted again, displaying a meticulously crafted timeline that Maya had spent months perfecting, each entry representing a piece of the puzzle that had nearly cost her everything. The jury leaned forward as one, their expressions a mix of horror and fascination as she explained how legitimate transactions had been used to mask the movement of billions in dark money. Special Agent Chen remained perfectly still, but Maya could sense his approval as she systematically dismantled the elaborate financial architecture that had taken Sterling and his associates decades to build. A murmur rippled through the courtroom as Maya revealed the connection between Meridian Global and a series of supposedly independent investment firms, each one a carefully constructed facade designed to hide the true nature of the money flowing through its accounts. The defense team shuffled through their papers with increasing desperation, while Winchester, the legendary defense attorney, scribbled furious notes, her usual commanding presence diminished by each new piece of evidence that appeared on the screens. Maya felt a surge of quiet satisfaction as she guided the court through the digital labyrinth she had mapped out, explaining how each transaction, each shell company, each seemingly innocent wire transfer formed part of a massive criminal enterprise that had operated in plain sight for years. The evidence was undeniable, now projected in high-definition detail for all to see. The same numbers that had once glowed on her computer screen in the dead of night were now illuminated for the world, their significance impossible to ignore or explain away. The air grew thick with tension as Maya approached the most damning evidence, yet her hand steady as she gestured toward a new diagram that appeared on the screens. This one showed the personal connections, the human cost of what Meridian Global had built. Sterling finally dropped his practiced smile as she began to speak the truth he had spent millions trying to bury, about to be exposed in a federal courtroom, while Special Agent Chen and his team waited with practiced patience for the perfect moment to strike. Maya unleashed a tsunami of evidence, her voice growing stronger with each revelation as she exposed how Meridian Global had created an invisible empire of shell companies stretching from the Cayman Islands to Dubai. Sterling dropped his smirk as she pulled up transaction records showing his personal signature on transfers to accounts linked to known arms dealers. The defense attorney jumped up so violently his chair toppled backward, while Judge Harrison watched the proceedings with eyes that had seen too much in his 30 years on the bench. The screens flickered with damning precision as Maya guided the court through a series of transactions that read like a roadmap to international arms trafficking, each document bearing Sterling's distinctive signature in blue ink. She remembered the night she had discovered these files, hidden deep within the bank's secure servers, her hands trembling as she realized the implications of what she was seeing. The same signature now loomed large on the courtroom displays, impossible to deny or explain away, while Sterling himself seemed to shrink in his expensive suit, the power dynamics of the room shifting like tectonic plates. Winchester, the legendary defense attorney, known for her unshakable composure, stumbled over her words as she tried to object, her usual strategic precision fracturing under the weight of evidence that even she hadn't known existed. Maya could see the exact moment Winchester realized her clients had lied to her about the depth of their involvement, the fleeting look of betrayal crossing her face. Before her professional masks slipped back into place, the other defense attorneys began rifling through their documents with increasing desperation, looking for any legal precedent that could stop this avalanche of truth. Judge Harrison raised his hand for silence, his gesture cutting through the growing chaos in the courtroom like a blade through silk. His weathered face had seen thousands of cases across 3 decades on the bench, but something in his expression told Maya that this testimony had shifted even his worldview. The gravity in his eyes matched the weight of the evidence as satellite imagery appeared on the screens, showing the exact locations where Meridian Global's money had financed operations that had destabilized entire regions. The jury sat transfixed as Maya methodically connected the dots between seemingly innocent financial transactions and the real-world consequences that had played out across international headlines. Sterling began loosening his silk tie, his carefully maintained composure cracking as she revealed how his private email server had contained coded communications with individuals on multiple international watch lists. The evidence was a masterwork of forensic accounting, each piece fitting perfectly with the next, creating a picture so clear and damning that no amount of legal maneuvering could obscure it. In the gallery, journalists frantically typed on their laptops, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of their screens, as they realized they were witnessing the exposure of a conspiracy that would dominate global headlines for months to come. Maya could feel the weight of history pressing down on the courtroom as she prepared to reveal the final piece of evidence, the smoking gun that had made Special Agent Chen and his team move with such decisive precision. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as she pulled up the last set of documents. A sharp intake of breath echoed through the chamber as the screen displayed a series of photographs showing Sterling himself meeting with notorious international figures at private airfields and secluded compounds. The defense team froze in their chairs as Maya explained how she had traced the tail numbers of private jets chartered through Meridian Global shell companies, each flight corresponding exactly with major arms shipments that had been intercepted by international authorities. The evidence formed an unbreakable chain linking the bank's seemingly legitimate operations directly to global criminal enterprises. Judge Harrison leaned forward on his bench, his gaze intense as Maya began to detail the personal notebooks she had discovered in Sterling's private vault, pages of handwritten notes that provided the final damning connection between Meridian Global's legitimate banking operations and its shadow empire. The defense attorneys whispered urgently among themselves, their legal strategies crumbling like sandcastles against a rising tide, while Special Agent Shen watched the proceedings with the patient stillness of a man who knew exactly how this game would end. The courtroom froze in a tableau of tension as Special Agent Shen suddenly materialized at the bench, his FBI badge gleaming like a shield of truth. Several plainclothes agents emerged from their strategic positions around the room, their hands hovering near concealed weapons, as Chen whispered words that made Judge Harrison blanch. Behind Maya, the massive wooden doors of the courtroom swung shut with an ominous thud that echoed through the silent chamber like a final heartbeat. Time seemed to stand still as Chen moved with practiced precision, his years of counterterrorism experience evident in every calculated step. The afternoon sun streaming through the Victorian windows cast his shadow long across the courtroom floor, a dark silhouette that stretched towards Sterling and his associates like an omen. Special Agent Rachel Torres, Chen's second in command, positioned herself near the defense table, her casual stance belying the lethal training that made her one of the Bureau's top operators. Judge Harrison listened intently as Chen spoke in hushed tones that somehow carried weight even in whispers, the judge's expression shifting from concern to alarm to grim resolution. The defense team watched helplessly as the carefully constructed case dissolved before their eyes. Winchester, the legendary attorney who had never lost a major trial in her 20-year career, slumped slightly in her chair as she realized the true scope of what her clients had hidden from her. Maya remained perfectly still at the witness stand, her testimony suspended in mid-sentence as she observed the choreographed movement of federal agents throughout the courtroom. Each operative had been carefully placed weeks ago, their covers, ranging from court reporters to maintenance staff to random spectators, now revealing themselves as part of an elaborate operation that had been months in the planning. The jury watched wide-eyed as the room they thought they knew transformed into something entirely different. Sterling attempted to reach for his phone, but froze as Agent Torres shifted her stance ever so slightly, her jacket falling open to reveal the holstered weapon beneath. The other banking executives seemed to shrink in their seats as they realized they were surrounded by federal agents, their escape routes cut off, their communications blocked by sophisticated jamming equipment that had been activated the moment Chen approached the bench. Even their high-priced security team, led by the ex-military commander Morrison, looked uncertain as they recognized the elite level of operators they were facing. The gallery erupted in whispers as more agents appeared, seemingly materializing from thin air, their movements synchronized, and deliberate. Court officers who had been secretly briefed began clearing specific rows, creating secure corridors throughout the chamber, while specialized technical teams emerged from behind the panels near the judge's chamber, rolling in equipment designed to detect and prevent any unauthorized transmission from leaving the building. The afternoon light caught the metallic gleam of handcuffs visible beneath suit jackets throughout the room. Judge Harrison rose from his bench, his authority momentarily suspended as Chen took control of the proceedings. The FBI agent produced a document that made the judge's eyebrows rise toward his hairline, while Maya noticed Sterling and his associates exchanging glances that ranged from panic to resignation to carefully controlled fury. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as Chen turned to face the court, his presence commanding absolute attention without speaking a word. The prosecutors sat back, watching the scene unfold with professional satisfaction, their months of coordination with the FBI leading to this precisely orchestrated moment. Maya caught a glimpse of Agent Martinez, nodding slightly in her direction, a gesture of respect between professionals who had worked in parallel to bring down one of the most sophisticated criminal enterprises in banking history. The silence in the courtroom grew deeper, more profound, as everyone present realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in federal court. Chen raised his hand slightly, and a new team of agents entered through a side door, their FBI windbreakers marking them as part of the Bureau's cybercrime division. Their presence confirmed what Maya had suspected, that her testimony had triggered a cascade of events that would reshape the landscape of international finance. Behind her, the courtroom doors remained firmly sealed as Chen prepared to reveal the true scope of the operation that Maya had unwittingly helped to bring to its culmination. Secret Service agents materialized at every exit as Chen revealed the explosive truth. Maya's testimony had exposed a network of financial terrorism that reached into the highest levels of international banking. The defense team erupted in chaos as their carefully constructed case crumbled, while Sterling lunged toward his phone, only to be tackled by an agent who seemed to materialize from thin air. The jury watched wide-eyed as the true scope of the conspiracy unfolded before them. Special Agent Chen stepped into the center of the courtroom, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through 20 years of counterterrorism operations, as he detailed how Maya's evidence had confirmed suspicions that had plagued multiple intelligence agencies for nearly a decade. The screens that had displayed financial charts moments ago now showed a complex network of international connections linking Meridian global banking to operations that had destabilized governments and funded shadow wars across 4 continents. Sterling struggled against the 2 agents restraining him, his $1,000 "I ask you," as he watched his carefully constructed world collapse around him. The other banking executives sat frozen in their chairs as Chen revealed how the FBI had been monitoring their communications for months, building a case that would have taken years to complete if Maya hadn't provided the crucial missing links. The defense attorney's papers, scattered across the floor like fallen leaves, their legal strategies rendered meaningless by the scope of federal evidence now being presented. Judge Harrison listened with growing concern as Chen explained how Maya's discoveries had accelerated a multinational investigation involving Interpol MI6 and various other intelligence agencies. The courtroom screens now displayed surveillance photos from dozens of locations around the globe, each image connecting another piece of the vast criminal enterprise that had operated under the guise of legitimate banking. Winchester, the defense team's lead attorney, slumped in her chair as she realized her stellar legal career might not survive the revelation that she had unknowingly defended a network of financial terrorists. The jury members sat transfixed as Chen methodically outlined how Sterling and his associates had used their banking expertise to create a shadow financial system that moved billions in illegal funds through seemingly legitimate channels. Maya watched as understanding dawned on their faces, the same realization she had experienced during those long nights of investigation when she first understood the true nature of what she had discovered. Agent Torres moved silently through the room collecting phones and electronic devices, her team systematically cutting off any possibility of external communication. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the courthouse windows as Chen revealed the existence of a specialized FBI task force that had been operating in parallel with Maya's investigation. Their operations had stretched from the marble halls of European banks to the hidden servers of darknet financial markets, each piece of evidence carefully gathered and cross-referenced with the information Maya had risked everything to uncover. The prosecutors exchanged knowing glances, their months of coordination with federal agencies finally bearing fruit in this moment of truth. A team of forensic accountants entered the courtroom rolling in servers and specialized equipment as Chen explained how they would begin the immediate process of freezing accounts and tracking assets across the global banking networks. Sterling watched with undisguised horror as his financial empire began to crumble in real time, the screens displaying the systematic shutdown of accounts and the freezing of assets worth billions. Maya felt a surge of vindication as she witnessed the dismantling of the corrupt system she had fought so hard to expose. The gallery erupted in hushed conversations as international journalists realized they were witnessing one of the largest financial crime busts in history. Chen continued his briefing, revealing how Maya's testimony had provided the final pieces of evidence needed to initiate a coordinated global operation that was at this very moment being executed across multiple continents. The afternoon light caught the subtle movement of more agents entering the courtroom, each carrying sealed documents that would transform this local court proceeding into a landmark case in the history of financial crime. Maya felt adrenaline surge through her veins as she realized her small crusade for corporate accountability had uncovered a serpent's nest of international crime. The screens now displayed a web of connections linking Meridian Global to terrorist cells across 3 continents, while Chen revealed that her evidence had provided the missing piece in a decade-long FBI investigation. Sterling and his conspirators had gone from looking like masters of the universe to cornered prey, their faces ashen as federal agents closed in. The courtroom hummed with controlled energy as Chen detailed how Maya's meticulous documentation had confirmed patterns that intelligence agencies had only theorized about for years. Her late-night discoveries had mapped perfectly onto FBI surveillance data, creating an unbreakable chain of evidence that connected Meridian Global's legitimate operations to a sprawling network of illegal activities. The technical team brought in specialized displays showing how her financial forensics had illuminated dark corners that had frustrated international investigators for over a decade. Sterling sat rigidly in his chair, his usually commanding presence diminished as Agent Torres presented a timeline that synchronized Maya's discoveries with known terrorist activities across the globe. The other banking executives watched in horror as their seemingly perfect financial machinery was exposed layer by layer. Each transaction she had flagged now revealed as part of a vast criminal enterprise that had moved billions in blood money through the world's most respected financial institutions. The defense team had completely abandoned any pretense of control, their legal paths lying forgotten as the true scope of their clients' crimes became apparent. The jury leaned forward as one man Chen explained how Maya's initial discovery of irregularities in Meridian Global's international accounts had aligned precisely with classified intelligence about major arms shipments and human trafficking operations. The afternoon light streaming through the courthouse windows seemed to spotlight the evidence screens as they displayed the intricate web of shell companies and shadow accounts she had mapped during countless sleepless nights. The prosecutors watched with quiet satisfaction as years of careful investigation culminated in this moment, their case strengthened beyond question by the synthesis of Maya's evidence with federal intelligence. A specialized cybersecurity team worked efficiently at the back of the courtroom, their equipment processing terabytes of data that would trace the full extent of Meridian Global's criminal network. Maya watched as her careful documentation of suspicious transactions was overlaid with classified FBI data revealing how her work had unknowingly tracked some of the most dangerous criminal enterprises in the modern world. The gallery sat in stunned silence as Chen revealed how her evidence had helped identify previously unknown connections between legitimate banking operations and international terrorist financing. Judge Harrison removed his reading glasses, his expression grave, as Chen presented documentation showing how Maya's discoveries had accelerated multiple international investigations. The technical displays now showed a real-time map of coordinated law enforcement operations happening across the globe, each one triggered by the evidence she had painstakingly gathered. The defense attorneys exchanged desperate glances as they realized their entire strategy had been built on a foundation of lies, their clients having concealed the true nature of their operations even from their own legal team. The afternoon shadows lengthened across the courtroom floor as Maya absorbed the full impact of what her investigation had unleashed. Her simple desire to expose corporate fraud had pulled back the curtain on one of the most sophisticated criminal enterprises in banking history. Agent Chen nodded respectfully in her direction as he explained how her evidence had provided the key to understanding the complex algorithms Meridian Global had used to hide illegal transactions in plain sight. The technical team continued their work, their screens showing the systematic deconstruction of financial networks that had taken decades to build. Sterling finally broke his silence, attempting to stand, but agents moved smoothly to contain him as Chen revealed the existence of sealed indictments that would implicate dozens of other financial institutions in the coming weeks. The prosecutors began organizing new stacks of documents as Maya realized that her testimony had been merely the beginning of a case that would reshape the landscape of international finance. The weight of what she had uncovered pressed down on the courtroom like a physical force as Chen prepared to reveal the next phase of the federal operation. The marble courtroom transformed into a stage of controlled chaos as a team of cybersecurity experts rushed in, securing laptops and phones. But tactical units appeared in the gallery. Sterling and his fellow executives were swiftly surrounded, their handcuffs clicking shut in a symphony of justice. Maya watched as the men who had once threatened to destroy her career were reduced to shuffling figures in custom suits, being led away to awaiting federal vehicles, while outside news helicopters circled like hawks. Agent Torres orchestrated the arrests with military precision, each executive systematically detained as specialized teams moved through the courtroom collecting and cataloging evidence. The defense attorneys stood helplessly by their client privileges, temporarily suspended by federal warrants that Chen had produced moments earlier. The afternoon sun caught the gleam of handcuffs as Sterling, the man who had once commanded boardrooms with a mere gesture, was firmly secured, his $10,000 suit wrinkled and his carefully maintained composure completely shattered. The gallery erupted in controlled commotion as federal agents efficiently cleared rows, creating secure corridors for prisoner transport, while evidence teams worked with practiced efficiency to preserve the chain of custody for every device and document. Maya observed how Sterling's security chief Morrison attempted to assert his authority only to be swiftly neutralized by Agent Torres' team, their tactical response revealing the presence of concealed weapons that had somehow made it through courthouse security. The judge's expression darkened at this discovery, his gavel falling with decisive force as he ordered the immediate detention of Morrison's entire security detail. Technical teams swarmed the defense table, their equipment detecting and disabling sophisticated communication devices hidden within seemingly innocent items like watches and tie clips. The prosecutors watched with professional satisfaction as each new discovery validated the extensive scope of their investigation. Winchester, the legendary defense attorney, sat in stunned silence as her own laptop was confiscated, her privileged communications now subject to federal review due to evidence suggesting her unwitting involvement in facilitating criminal communications. The jury was quickly but carefully escorted to a secure room as Chen explained that their safety was now a federal priority. Given the scope of the criminal enterprise, they had helped expose the afternoon light streaming through the Victorian windows, illuminated swirling dust motes disturbed by the sudden activity, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere as justice descended upon the courtroom like an avenging force. The technical teams worked with quiet efficiency, their specialized equipment detecting and documenting every electronic device, every hidden compartment, every attempt at concealing evidence. Maya remained at the witness stand watching as years of corporate intimidation and financial corruption crumbled before the overwhelming force of federal justice. Sterling caught her eye as he was led past, his expression a mixture of fury and disbelief that his former subordinate had brought down his empire. Agent Chen positioned himself between them, his presence a reminder that the power dynamics had shifted irreversibly. The other executives followed in succession, each one secured and processed according to federal protocols, their faces masks of resignation as reality settled in. Outside the courtroom doors, the sounds of multiple law enforcement agencies coordinating operations echoed through the marble halls. SWAT teams secured the building perimeter, while specialized units prepared for prisoner transport. The prosecutors began organizing the next phase of their operation, knowing that this was merely the beginning of a case that would spread across multiple jurisdictions and international borders. The technical teams continued their systematic sweep, uncovering hidden servers and backup devices that Sterling and his associates had thought untraceable. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the courtroom floor as Maya witnessed the final dismantling of Meridian Global's criminal empire. Federal agents moved with practiced efficiency, securing evidence that would tie this case to dozens of other investigations across the globe. The sound of helicopter rotors grew louder as news of the arrests began to spread, while in the courthouse plaza crowds of journalists gathered, sensing the magnitude of the story unfolding behind the buildings. Historic Foucault Agent Torres coordinated with her team, ensuring that each prisoner would be transported separately, their destinations classified to prevent any possibility of collaboration or escape. Days later, Maya sat in a secure federal building reviewing her testimony with a team of FBI agents and federal prosecutors. Her actions had exposed one of the largest financial terrorism networks in modern history. A small smile played across her face as she signed the final papers, knowing that her courage to speak up had changed everything. Agent Chen stood at the window overlooking the Washington Mall, his reflection in the bulletproof glass a reminder of the protection now surrounding her as international authorities continued to unravel the full scope of Meridian Global's crimes. The wood-paneled conference room hummed with focused energy as specialized teams coordinated operations across multiple time zones. Maya's evidence had triggered simultaneous raids in financial centers from London to Singapore. Massive screens covering the walls displayed real-time updates as more arrests were made and accounts frozen. The international task force she had helped create had already seized assets worth billions, while intelligence agencies raced to contain the ripple effects spreading through the global banking system. Sterling and his associates sat in separate maximum security facilities, their empire crumbling as prosecutors built cases that would ensure none of them would ever walk free. Agent Torres had personally overseen their transfer, her team documenting every conversation, every attempted contact, every desperate move to salvage something from the wreckage. The morning newspapers spread across the conference table told the story in bold headlines. Maya skimmed the coverage, noting how her small act of corporate whistleblowing had escalated into what journalists were calling the most significant financial crime bust of the century. The technical teams had worked through the night, their specialized equipment processing terabytes of data recovered from Meridian Global's hidden servers. Each new discovery confirmed the wisdom of Maya's decision to come forward, revealing connections to criminal enterprises that had plagued law enforcement for decades. The prosecutors watched with satisfaction as the cases grew stronger by the hour, their evidence boards expanding to include new names, new corporations, new threads in a web of corruption that stretched across the globe. Agent Chen approached the conference table, his customary calm presence carrying an air of satisfaction as he shared the latest intelligence briefing. International authorities had already moved to protect other whistleblowers who had been inspired by Maya's testimony to come forward with evidence against their own institutions. The screens showed a surge of activity in financial centers worldwide as banks rushed to distance themselves from Meridian Global, while internal auditors began discovering suspicious patterns that mirrored what Maya had uncovered. The afternoon sun filtered through the secure windows as Maya reviewed the witness protection proposals. Knowing her life would never be the same, the FBI had already moved her family to a safe location, their security a top priority, as the full impact of her testimony continued to reverberate through the international financial community. Agent Torres had personally overseen the security arrangements, ensuring that no detail was overlooked, no precaution ignored as they protected the woman who had dared to expose the truth. Maya felt a profound sense of peace as she watched the teams at work, knowing that her years of careful documentation, her sleepless nights, her refusal to look away from suspicious transactions had led to this moment. The prestigious law firms that had once represented Sterling and his associates were now scrambling to avoid indictment themselves as evidence emerged of their complicity in concealing their clients' crimes. The prosecutors worked steadily through stack after stack of documents, building cases that would reshape the landscape of international finance. Outside the secure facility, life in Washington continued, unaware of the seismic shifts taking place behind these walls. Maya caught glimpses of tourists strolling past, their casual photos of the Capitol buildings contrasting sharply with the intense activity within this room where the future of global banking was being rewritten. Agent Chen shared a quiet nod with her, their mutual understanding of the magnitude of what they had achieved requiring no words. The technical teams continued their work, their screens displaying the systematic dismantling of criminal networks that had operated with impunity for generations, while Maya signed the final papers that would ensure justice would finally be served.